Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Killjoys. A very good episode. Lot of interesting developments. Obviously, a big part of this episode is about laying to rest. Like five top people in the whole rat system. One of them being Banyan. But basically kind of giving them a proper burial. But it's also an opportunity for Dutch to talk to the Nine about the whole Holland situation. They're like, yo, back us up with this whole Holland situation. Which at first they're kind of like, no, we're not going to do that. It's like, what are you talking about? You guys put us in this situation in the first place by making your deal with the Holland like all those years ago, all those generations ago. It's like, yeah, but you guys fought them. You sparked all this. It's kind of your fault. And even Dutch is like, why are these guys not worried about it at all? It's like, them coming should have worried them too. Because the Holland are all about expanding and making everyone else like them too, wiping out humanity and making it only Holland. Later on, we end up finding out, like, oh yeah, because they plan on leaving the quad and going to a remote part of the J system and just kind of like, oh yeah, chilling out there till it's all kind of works over. But then Dutch is like, yeah, the moment they wipe us out, they're going to spread everywhere. So we die without your backing. It's okay, because they'll come after you eventually anyway. So karma will kind of catch up to you. So either they'll catch up with you or I will. So still left up in the air by the time the end of the episode rolls around of whether or not they'll really back them up or not. But I'm thinking, yeah, they're backing her up from now on. But it is kind of interesting because they even say it themselves, like, oh, we, the Nine, or the Guardians. It's like, Guardians are nothing. You haven't made a single move this entire time. Like, I guess maybe the only ones who probably really knew about the Holland coming was Dutch and a few that are in the know about it, but no one really knows about their coming, and I guess the Nine are no exception. You would think they would. It's actually kind of interesting that they don't know the truth about the whole Dulcea situation, because they still think Dulcea is dead. I don't know if they actually know about the whole Johnny situation, like Johnny potentially being the one to kill. I don't know. I feel like if they did, and then again, his name did get cleared, so maybe that it kind of plays a part in that, but nevertheless. Was meeting Noelle again, Potter's sister. I think I brought her up early in the season. Like, oh, I'm curious because we haven't seen her since the episode where their parents died. Like when we got to meet Potter's family for the first, like her entire family. That whole situation. That was the last time we had seen Noelle. So we haven't, So her and Johnny's first interactions, subsequently since Potter died. And obviously Noella's kind of giving him the cold shoulder. I'm like, oh, is she, like, why is she doing that? Turns out in this entire situation, I figured it out from the very beginning. I was like, because she left that elevator a little too timely. It's just like, oh, you just happen to leave the elevator just when shit goes wrong and they're being trapped in that elevator and people in the Nine start dying. It's like, I think that's a little coincidental. And then when Johnny's trying to work on some stuff, he just happens to go, oh, I'm sick. It's like, there's no getting sick. Like, it struck all those people all of a sudden like they were dead. So those were red flags there. So I was like, she's behind all this, isn't it? And it's like, and it turns out I was right. Her motive, it was pretty simple to figure out. It's like revenge. Because of the Nine's inaction and stuff like that, because of who the Nine are and everything, it led to Potter dying. I don't know if she actually knows it was actually Dulcea at this point in time. Like, he never Johnny never actually said anything, but I'm sure as one of the Nine, she has access to like information and stuff like that. So, like, people who gather information for her. So I would assume she would know that Dulcea was the one. Like, once again, like, I don't know how many people know the circumstances around the whole Dulcea situation of, like, Johnny being the one to kill her and why he did. I mean, he ends up talking about revenge later on and stuff like that. So maybe she knows. But at the same time, it's like, the Nine's way of being who they are is the reason why her family fell apart. The reason her mom and dad died, because another member of the Nine didn't agree with the way they handled things. That her family were kind of like against the system and stuff like that. Because they had their own beliefs and stuff, and they had to die for that. That's what that whole, like, basically killing their mom with her own experiment and stuff. So, and her dad sacrificing himself, and then on top of that, she ended up losing her sister, and it's a situation of like she's all alone, and she's in pain, she's angry, and she wanted to get revenge. It's like, because she was also like, because even Johnny's like, you're not going to get away with it. She's like, I never had any intention, and so I don't know whether she was going to kill herself or give herself up, because for her it's all about wiping out the Nine. It's like, because of them, she has nothing, she has nowhere. It's like, what about you, Johnny? Yeah, you're hurt and everything, but you ran. Me, I have nowhere else to go. What do I have left? I have nothing. Which is like, Johnny understands what she's going through because he loves Potter and everything. And she even blamed him, being like, if it wasn't for you, Potter would have been in that situation. It's like, Potter would have been in that situation because Potter was awesome. She was a good person. Yes, she had her issues, but she always tried her best. You could argue like her doing her best was always her way of trying to make up for her past. But no, you could all make that argument, but I do believe that everything she ever did was to strive for the best of everyone. Like everything she did was for like Westerly, for the Westerlands, and it was even her who kind of roped Johnny into the whole situation. Like she went to him for help, wanting him to lie for his to Dutch and Davin about the whole situation of working with her to fix and work on things. So, but it's a situation where it's like, when you're mad, when you're angry, when you want vengeance, you don't see clearly. Like, for her, like, she was even willing to kill Johnny in that sense, because it's just like you you helped take everything away from me. Like, my sister wouldn't be dead if it wasn't for you. So, but Johnny kind of reminded her, it's like, yeah, you can kill us all, which the reason why you're doing what you're doing now is because this way you don't have to look us in the face. It's like, because Johnny was face to face with the person that he tried to kill, and that being Dulcea. But it's like, it changes you. You can act like it won't, like you're no different, like, oh, you're killing these people. It's like, no, you're murdering them. Like, remember that you are a murderer. This isn't just like, oh, these people they're getting their just dessert, they're being executed. Like, you are murdering them. And don't try and like justify it in a sense. It's like, I get it, but once all that vengeance, it'll feel good for a while, but eventually you'll just be left with the pain all over again. So it doesn't solve anything. It won't make you feel better. So he ended up getting her to stop. Whether anything really comes of that, we don't know. Whether she got arrested, whether the rat took her or not, like whether she's still part of the 9, even though she tried to kill them. Maybe they omitted the whole situation, and maybe they covered up Noella's involvement. Maybe they didn't. Like, I don't know. We'll just have to really wait to see whether she really suffered any ramifications for it. Just like I said, she's just a lady that just misses her family and was just mourning them. And because she even said something throughout the episode of being like, the beautiful thing about a funeral is that you can move on. I kind of felt like that was kind of horseshit. It's like, you don't move on. Even a funeral isn't enough. It gives you closure and stuff like that to get you to move on. But even then, that's not enough. It doesn't erase the pain. The pain will always be there with you no matter what. And I also should have figured, I knew something was definitely up too when she was like, Johnny was like, oh, asking about her hand. She's like, no, it's too painful. I was like, no, and it turns out to be the case. It was connected to the whole like bug things too. I mean, it makes it even more like, I guess almost ironic is the fact that she used one of her mom's experiments, her mom's inventions to do this. I mean, let's not forget how her mom died. Her mom was killed by one of her own inventions too. So it's just, I don't know, just messed up irony in a sense. Just kind of the same means of like taking stuff she didn't mean for, I mean, that's kind of the thing in this is taking stuff that wasn't meant to be weaponized and turning them into weapons. And it's just the whole thing. So I did like Dutch's explanation as to why it couldn't be Alvis, because she's like, if it was Alvis, he would have screamed at the top of his lungs because he's a righteous asshole, and he would have just been like, yeah, it was me, I killed him. You would have screamed at the top of your lungs, and Alvis was like, wait, all right, you're right, you're 100% right. But it was also that bit I thought was kind of interesting, was the whole aspect of like the 9 going to Alvis for tolerance, which is essentially like, oh, we'll pay for you to forgive our sins. It's like, so that when they left, this is how Dutch ended up explaining it. It's like, when they left, they have a clear conscience. It's like, oh, good for you. Like, it's like, oh, we'll pay for our sins to be wiped away. It's like, it's okay. Just like making themselves feel a little better that they basically were leaving the quad to kind of fend for itself when the Homeland are coming. That's, once again, why they weren't worried and everything. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. And it kind of showed you just the mentality that the 9 had. It's like, you had like your big, powerful, oh, we're the guardians of the quad. It's like, shut up. You're nothing but bastards who put the entire quad in this like position. And the fact of the matter is, like, you put this whole thing in motion. Yes, you didn't directly, but your ancestors did. And even Dutch says it, like, they didn't have a choice. It was just a matter of like they had to at that time. It's like, you have a choice now. So the fact is that you're not willing to fight now. Like, it's not even like she's actually telling you yourself to fight. She's just like, give us the money to fight. But it's like, I guess that money would be money they'd use to restart. So I was like, oh, we can't waste it on something like fruitless as you fighting, because it'd just be a waste of money. It's like, better to try than not try at all. I mean, because what's going to be the worst case scenario? They lose. It's like, well, you're going to run anyway, right? So what difference would it make? So There's also the interesting aspect of Dutch and Davin in this episode, which I thought was kind of fascinating in the sense of like, obviously Dutch has her like reservations about this whole situation because like she's questioning, she's doubting herself because like she's like a lot of people have died and it's just Aniela's kind of back turned into a corner now, and it's just like she's starting to feel that effects of just like, well, lost all those rack stations plus like the whole Banyan situation, so she's doubting herself. But Davin's basically like, hey, we don't have time for that shit. Get your shit together. This is a fight. Like, if you give up now, if you give in to doubt and stuff like that, you second guess yourself like that. Yes, Banyan was a mistake, but that's all it was. You can't live in the past because the moment you start doing all that, we are guaranteed to lose. This is a fight. We have to keep the hope alive and keep fighting. So, and then, you know, they kind of had that tender moment, and then Dutch kissed him. He was like, whoa. And she's like, what do you mean, whoa? And it's just like, it made the episode awkward because anytime like she'd avoid really talking to Davin, he's like, are you really? He's like, oh, so you're really going to ignore me? He's like, I wasn't challenging you to ignore me. I think it's just because Dutch isn't big into putting herself out there, and the fact that she took that first leap like that, I think it caught Davin off guard because I think for him, he didn't know where they really stood. I mean, because we knew him back in season 2, there was something there. Because Bree commented on it when Davin and Sabine were kind of hitting it off. It's like, oh yeah, you don't want to be with someone, but you don't want anyone else to be with them either. So there's obviously something there too already. But there's nothing that's kind of happened between them subsequently since what went down in season 1 with him getting brainwashed and everything and kind of attacking, almost killing her and Johnny. So things have been a little awkward there. So I think that's what kind of caught him on guard. It's like, I didn't know there was possibly anything here. I mean, neither one of you is dating anyone. So, but I think for Dutch, it was like, oh crap, crap. It's that awkward moment of like, I put myself out there and it's like, he's not into me. It's like, I mean, who's to say what Davin's really into? I mean, he never got the really chance to explain himself because she didn't want to talk about it. But then again, like they had an opportunity later on, but then, you know, Seth came with the whole brain situation. Like, oh, it's brain matter. Specifically the part of the brains that contains memories and stuff like that, and because of that, Dutch was like, okay, let's come on, and you know, Davin never has a chance to really talk about it. So going into the next episode, that awkwardness is still going to be there until they really get to sit down and talk, because I'd love to know where Davin really stands on it too, where he'd be like, yeah, that's probably a situation of like, we should kind of wait until this whole like colon situation is dealt with, then we can kind of figure that out. Until then, you know, I mean, I feel like that might be where Davin is, like, it's like we got to stay 100% focused, because you also got to remember, like, Aniela's taking an interest in him too, so eventually she's going to get her hands on him. I just probably by the time this season ends, she's going to get her hands on that. That's probably how it will end, with her getting him. So, but kind of tying the last part of the episode, I really want to dive into is the whole situation with Neela and those brain pieces. Those brain pieces are her memories, because like she was talking to Klein inside of her, like when she was in the goo and everything, and I was like, oh, like she's like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, don't you, like, I forgot. It's like, he's like, oh, what else do you remember? She's like, nothing. You should know that. I was like, did he mess with your memory? It turned out that's to be the case. That's what's in the remnant. So that Klein left. So it's like, is that meant for Dutch? Or is that meant for Aniela? Like, what did he take from her? I'm curious. And was it something specifically to stop her from doing whatever it is that she needs to do now? Which, whatever she's doing now, it seems like Davin might be the key to it. Because it seems like he, like, did something to the goo when, like, I guess when she mixes his, like, his DNA, like, whatever it is with Davin, like when she mixed it with the goo, it did something. Like the goo is like liquidy, but then it kind of foamed up and like solidified into something. And it's just like, so maybe mixing Davin with the slime, like if you can manage to do it, it will kind of upgrade it. Maybe it might even create like a more powerful, it might amplify the power of the goo. But kind of focusing on the Aniela side of the episode, we see her and Dulcea got a lot closer. I even love Aniela being like, it's not all Hohen, it's just me that, you know, like the sex is that good. I was like, wow. And Dulcea's just kind of like, ooh, it's good to be queen, just like basking in it. And it turns out, Gander, I love like twist of everything. Of like, because I was wondering, because like when Aniela pops up again and it's like, wait, what's going on here? Where's everyone? She's freaking out. And even the moment Dulcea is going, she's like, no, you know, she's like, what's going on? It's happening again, because she got left alone again. Like for Aniela, that's her biggest fear. She doesn't ever want to be alone again. That's why she surrounds herself with so many people, especially yes people who always say yes to her because she's a commander and everything. Quote unquote commander. get to that in a second. But it's just that fear of being alone that kind of pushes her to go forward. I guess that's why like the whole client situation hit her even harder. Not only is he her dad, but that's like the one person in the world she really cares about, that she really feels like was her everything. So, but I like the twist to find, because I was thinking like, okay, this whole thing is a setup to be a coup, like they're staging the coup. It's like, not necessarily. It turns out that basically the ship isn't necessarily Aniela's. It's actually like other, like, I guess, high-ranking members of like the Holland. Basically, Gander kind of is alone with that allegiance, because Neela is just kind of a prisoner. It's like, yes, we make her feel like she's important, like she is the commander. Granted, she is important because of what she can do, like how powerful she is, but it's like, even that has its limitations, because it's like the whole blowing up the rack thing. It's like, no, because like I think they had their own plans, but now like, because it also, like I brought up last episode, it drastically affected her forces. Not only did she kill the rack agents, but also the ones that were on their side. So it's like she killed some of their soldiers, and it's like, yeah, they could replenish those ranks, but they had them specifically there. So I guess their conquest of the quad system would be a lot easier. Things would be a lot less complicated. Now they kind of have to transition plans, I assume. So that's kind of like, no, Aniela, you're in timeout. So this whole thing is like, she's always been pretend commander. We let her wipe out some soldiers here and there, just to make her feel like she's really in control. But it's like, did you really think we'd leave everything to her? Because let's face it, Neela's not the most stable person, so it kind of makes sense. Because I was wondering how she ended up becoming commander. So it seems like she isn't. Curious to see who the other top-ranked people that Gander was working with. But there was even a moment that there was the woman Breen. She was like, should you really be doing something to Dulcea? Because Aniela won't really like that. It's like, oh, she'll get over it. We'll find her a new toy. And it's like, the moment he said that, I was like, yeah, but the problem is Aniela's fond of Dulcea. And that comes true when she gets out. And she's like, where is Kendry? And like, they wouldn't give her an answer. And she starts going around killing everybody, screaming, where is Kendry? So it's like, she cares for Dulcea. Like, that isn't just like some flaunting thing. It's because probably the only person she's ever gotten close to in all this time, like she's ever had like mutual feelings for. And so it's just like, it seems like Aniela's kind of starting a war of her own to like, where is Dulcea? So that was just kind of interesting. And at the same time that whole situation is happening, you're having Johnny being like, yeah, the fact of the matter is, like, he wishes he could get back at Dulcea the way she got at him, like, by taking away someone that he loves. But it's like, Dulcea would never know that, because she'll never have anyone that cares about, she'll never care about anyone that same way, which seems that's not the case. It seems like Dulcea does have feelings for Aniela. Yes, she's using her, but to the same extent, like, I'm sure Aniela's using Dulcea too, but there is a mutual something there. And that was just, it took me by surprise to see. I was like, the moment he said that line of like, oh, we'll find her, it's like, no, it's not going to work like that, is it? The fact they said she slept with Dulcea, it didn't just stop with kissing. It's like, no, they slept together. It's like, you have feelings for her, don't you? So that was just kind of interesting. We did also see Dulcea's whole situation. It looks like she's pregnant. Maybe, I don't know. Like, they are experimenting on her and we see her eyes opening up. So I'm guessing, basically almost like a second generation slime type Holland type of thing. I think they were experimenting on making the Holland stronger. I guess they're taking the Davin approach and mixing it with Holland, like basically whatever it really is that Aniela discovered. We still don't really know what it is exactly, like what that the goo changing like that, what that really represented and what that means. Hopefully we'll kind of get an answer to that in the next episode. But to me, I'm thinking what I'm interpreting, especially with Johnny's like talking as we're bouncing to that scene, I think that's supposed to represent the fact is that now she's going even further into the Holland process of like it numbing her. Like, you know, I don't think she'll probably like forget about Aniela, or really rather she won't care as much anymore. Maybe she's supposed to be a vessel to give birth to the new Holland or something. I don't know. Like, that looked like they gave, like, she got pregnant. So I don't know whether they inseminated her or whatever the case may be there. But it definitely seems like she might not be the same Dulcea she was before. At least even becoming a Holland, she seemed like she was roughly the same Dulcea. But now it seems like maybe it's like it cuts off all that made her who she was. Even though she can be kind of like an asshole. I guess I don't know. Like it seems like it might be numbing her, and like the next time her and Aniela meet, they won't be able to recognize it. It's like, oh, you're not the same Dulcea like I fell for it and everything. So that's even more of an interesting twist because it's like, what if we end up finding out Aniela ends up turning against him because it's like you took someone that I love and care about, and now might even have a weird situation where Neela and Dutch have to work together to take down the rest of the Holland. It might be a weird situation like that. I'm very interested to see where the next episode goes in the case of that. Like, or this might just be Neela doing her own one-sided war. I mean, she is unlike any other. Like I said, the only, as we see, like the only other person that can kind of match her is Davin and what he can do, but obviously it looks like she can do it to a much bigger scale, just walking, literally lifting Gander up like some like legitimate like Star Wars Force stuff, like lifting him up and like killing him like that. That was kind of cool. Like I said, I'm also curious about the whole memory situation, like what memories were taken from her. Like obviously, like I said, it must have something to do with the current situation of like Klein wanting to slow her down so she wouldn't have access to everything that she needs, or something else entirely. Maybe it will explain no, because even Klein himself said he never knew what the connection between Dutch and Aniela was, but I mean, he could have been lying just to protect her, and maybe he knew the truth the entire time. We'll just kind of have to wait and see and find out about that. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.